There is a point where skill becomes so extreme that people stop calling it skill. They start reaching for other words. Genius. Sorcery. Witchcraft. In a narrow, candle-dark chapel in the heart of old Naples, a body lies stretched upon a stone bed, a man, newly dead, laid out in the first cold hour after his execution. And over him, from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet, is draped a thin funeral veil. You can see the cloth settle onto his face. You can see it sink into the hollows of his closed eyes, catch on the sharp bridge of his nose, and gather in soft, exhausted folds across his wounded hands. Every instinct you have says it is fabric. Your fingers ache to take one corner and lift it away. But there is nothing to lift. The veil is stone. The body beneath it is stone. And they were cut from the same single block of marble, by one man, in a single year. For 2.5 centuries, people have refused to believe that a human being did this. This is the veiled Christ. Walk around it, as thousands do every day, and the illusion does not break. It deepens. Where the veil lies flat against the chest, the marble is polished to the sheen of wet silk. Where it lifts away from the body, over the knees, over the ribs, you can see, through the stone, the shape of the flesh beneath. The cloth is translucent, not painted to look translucent, but carved so thin, and shaped so precisely, that hard white marble behaves like gauze held up to the light. Look closer, and it becomes almost unbearable. The threadbare weave of the fabric is there. The seam runs along the shroud's edge. Beside the body lie the instruments of his torture, the pincers, the crown of thorns, the nails, each rendered with the same merciless patience. This is not a statue that flatters the eye from a distance. It invites you to come close, to hunt for the trick, and it defeats you at every range. The awe it produces is physical. Visitors fall silent. Some weep. Many simply refuse to accept what they are told, that it is only marble. So how is it possible? On paper, the answer is almost insultingly simple. It was carved. Giuseppe Sanmartino, a Neapolitan sculptor barely 30 years old, took a single block of marble and, across the year 1753, cut away everything that was not the Christ and his veil. The veil was never a separate cloth laid over a finished body. It is the same stone, the outermost skin of the block, left standing a few millimeters proud while the sculptor tunneled the empty space between cloth and flesh with drills and files and endless, ruinous hours. To make marble red as transparent, he had to control not the shape of the fabric but the thickness of the stone, so that light would sink a little way into it, the way it sinks into skin. It is an act of engineering as much as art, a calculation of how far a beam of light will travel through white marble before it scatters. And here is the detail that unsettles even other sculptors: there is almost no margin for error. One slip of the chisel through that paper-thin veil, and the whole block is ruined. A year of work, gone in a heartbeat. He did not slip. But the Christ is only half the story. The man who ordered it was Raimondo di Sangro, 7th Prince of Sansevero, and he is the reason the legends grew. Di Sangro was an inventor, a chemist, a soldier, a scholar of hidden things. He was the first Grand Master of Freemasonry in Naples, and for that the church excommunicated him. He filled this chapel, his family's private tomb, with allegories no ordinary patron would dare, figures wrestling free of marble nets, a veiled woman called Modesty, a man tearing loose from the net of disillusion. And in the crypt below, he left the objects that would haunt his name forever, 2 so-called anatomical machines, a man and a woman reduced to skeletons, their entire circulatory system, every vein and artery, reconstructed in astonishing, blood-red detail. In an age before modern anatomy, people asked the obvious, terrible question: how did he know? The whispers said he had injected some alchemical fluid into 2 living servants and turned their blood to stone from the inside. The prince, who loved a mystery, did nothing to deny it. Around a man like that, a marble veil that looked like real cloth needed only one explanation. And so the story hardened into fact that Raimondo di Sangro had taught Sanmartino a secret process, that a real veil had been laid over the finished Christ and, by some chemical baptism, turned to living marble. It is a beautiful story. It is also untrue. The commission survives. The prince's own written instruction asked for a Christ covered by a transparent shroud carved from the same block. The payment records name Sanmartino, and Sanmartino alone. Restorers who have studied the surface across 3 centuries find tool marks, not sorcery, the honest scars of the drill. And the anatomical machines, examined with modern eyes, turn out to be models, real skeletons, yes, but their veins made of wire, wax, and colored silk, not petrified blood. Every impossible thing in this chapel has a human explanation, which raises a stranger question than the legend ever did. Why does the truth feel less believable than the myth? Perhaps because the veil is doing something deeper than fooling the eye. A shroud is the last thing that separates the living from the dead, a thin membrane between the world we can touch and the one we cannot. Sanmartino carves that membrane, and then, quietly, lets us see straight through it. We are looking at death made soft, made gentle, made almost tender, the horror of the crucifixion wrapped and hidden, and yet still plainly visible underneath. The idea beneath the marble is exactly that: the veil of the flesh is thin, and something shines through it. The sculpture was never really about cloth at all. It is about the terrifying nearness of whatever lies on the other side of it. That is why people reach out to lift a veil they know is stone. They are not testing the illusion. They are answering it. We like to believe the greatest things were made by magic, because magic asks nothing of us. It is easier to say a prince turned cloth to stone than to sit with the truth that an ordinary man, with ordinary tools and one uninterrupted year of his life, made this by hand. The alchemy was real. It simply wasn't chemical. So when you finally stand before the veiled Christ, and every part of you insists the veil is cloth, ask yourself which you would rather trust, the documents or your own eyes. And then ask why, after 250 years, we still cannot quite bring ourselves to believe a human did it.